Alexander the Great. You know the name, right? The guy who basically conquered the known world before he turned 30. It's legendary stuff. But here's the thing. His path to glory, it didn't start with some epic battle. No, it started way darker. It started with a secret, a bloody coronation, and one really, really shocking question.
And this is the question that just hangs over everything. Before he was Alexander the Great, he was just this 20-year-old kid whose dad, King Philip II, gets assassinated out of nowhere. Now, the official story, it was just some angry bodyguard. But come on, that sounds a little too neat, doesn't it? So, right away, the rumors start flying. People are whispering that this wasn't some random act. This was a plot, a conspiracy to get Philip off the chessboard and make room for someone new, someone very, very ambitious. And get this, the main suspects, they were practically in the same room. A lot of fingers pointed at Alexander's own mother, Queen Olympias. She was intense, and Philip had recently pushed her aside. But then there was an even darker whisper that maybe, just maybe, Alexander himself had a hand in it. Look, we might never know for sure who was behind it, but the end result was the same. Philip was gone. And suddenly, at just 20 years old, Alexander is king. And his first big test, it wasn't about conquering Persia, it was about just staying alive. So to hold on to that crown, he couldn't waste a second. He had to take out every single person who might be a threat. And this is where you start to wonder, was the brutal stuff that happened next just cold hard politics? Or was this just who Alexander was? This was his first real move. And the way they cleaned house, it was terrifyingly efficient. His mom, Olympias, handled the competition. She made Philip's newest wife commit suicide right after her baby was killed. At the same time, Alexander sends an assassin to take out this top general, Attalus, a guy who absolutely despised him. See, this wasn't just chaos. These were calculated moves. The message couldn't have been clearer. If you question my power, you're next. Okay, so the court in Macedon is now, let's say, very quiet and very loyal. But now Alexander has a new problem, a huge one, the rest of Greece. All these proud, rowdy city-states see Philip's death and think, hey, this is our chance to break free. They look at Alexander and they don't see a king, they see a kid. So what do? How does this 20-year-old get an entire continent of hardened warriors to fall in line? Well, his plan was kind of a two-step process. Step 1, show them you're a genius. Step 2, show them you're absolutely terrifying. And you see his genius right away in Thessaly. Their army is blocking this key mountain pass, right? It's basically a suicide mission to attack it head on. So Alexander doesn't. He just goes over it. He literally has his men secretly carve steps into the side of the mountain, and he marches his entire army over the top. They pop up behind the enemy, who are just stunned. They surrendered on the spot. Not a single person had to die. So the rest of Greece is like, whoa, okay, this kid is for real. But the city of Thebes, they didn't quite get the memo. A rumor starts that Alexander is dead, so they rebel again. Big mistake. For this, Alexander wasn't going to use a clever trick. He was going to make an example out of them. Once his army broke through the walls of Thebes, he just let them loose. No mercy. 6,000 people were killed right there in the streets. And anyone who survived, 30,000 of them, men, women, kids, were rounded up and sold as slaves. He had the city itself burned to the ground, just erased from existence. It was a brutal message, but it worked. After that, the Greek rebellions, they just stopped. So, with Greece now under his thumb, Alexander starts building this aura around himself. He's not just a king, he's a guy who can do the impossible, a guy who seems to have the gods on his side. You've got to hear this story about the Oracle of Delphi. He shows up, wants a prophecy, right? But the priestess tells him, sorry, the gods are kind of busy today. Alexander is not taking no for an answer. He literally grabs her and starts dragging her to the altar. She gets so fed up, she just yells, by the gods, you're irresistible. And Alexander just stops, smiles, and goes, perfect, that's the prophecy I needed. He took her being annoyed and turned it into a divine blessing. Then you have the Gordian knot. He gets to this city, Gordium, and there's this famous ancient knot, super complex, totally impossible to untangle. And there's a big prophecy. Whoever can undo this knot will rule all of Asia. You know, emperors and kings had been trying to solve this thing for ages. Nobody could do it. So Alexander walks up, takes one look at this impossible knot, and then he just pulls out his sword and cuts it in half. Problem solved. The message there was just as important as the act itself. Sometimes you don't need to be clever. You just need to be decisive. You just need to cut through the problem. Okay, so Greece is quiet, his legend is growing. There's only one thing left to do. It's time for the main event. Time to take on the biggest, richest empire in the world. It's Alexander versus King Darius and the whole Persian Empire.
And just look at the odds at the final showdown, the Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander has, maybe 47,000 battle-hardened troops? Darius, he's got a massive army. We're talking maybe over 200,000 soldiers. I mean, on paper, Alexander's army should have been wiped off the map.
The night before, his top general comes to him and says, look, we should attack at night, use the darkness to our advantage. But Alexander just shuts him down. He says, and this is so famous, I don't steal my victories. He wasn't going to sneak a win. He was going to crush them in broad daylight, where everyone could see. So how in the world did he pull it off? It was pure tactical genius. Here's the play. He starts moving his army's right side diagonally, kind of sideways. It totally confuses the Persians. They send their cavalry out to stop him, but that stretches their own line out and makes it thin. And that's exactly what Alexander wanted. The second that happened, a gap opened up. He immediately pivots his best cavalry, forms a wedge, and punches right through that hole, heading for one person and one person only. King Darius is on his chariot, watching this whole thing, and he sees his line break. And then he sees Alexander himself, leading the charge, coming straight for him. And the great king of Persia just panicked. He spun his chariot around and ran. The moment his army saw their king flee, it was over. Their morale just evaporated. It wasn't even a battle anymore, it was a total rout. And there you have it. That's kind of the Alexander the Great playbook, isn't it? Secure your crown with blood. Tame a continent with a mix of genius and pure terror. Solve impossible problems by just breaking the rules. And topple an empire with one perfectly timed, insane charge. It was this wild mix of brilliant strategy, incredible leadership, and, let's be honest, a terrifying streak of ruthlessness. Think about it. In under 10 years, he did what no one thought was possible. He brought down the world's superpower and built an empire that stretched from Greece all the way to India. I mean, we're still talking about him thousands of years later. But that road to glory was built on assassination, on massacres, on brutal, relentless conquest. So yeah, he conquered the world by the time he was 30, but it leaves you wondering, what did it all ultimately cost him?